You channel an alien intelligence referred to as the Z's.
They speak about themselves as a consciousness library, and they've been my guides since I was little.
Can we say hello to the Z's?
Good. A pleasure to be here with you.
Who or what are the powers that run the world?
There are several forces trying to use this planet as a resource. And the consciousness battle that has been going on for a very long time on Earth is now at a point where it is more unstable than ever before.
What's the most surprising thing coming for humanity in the next 2 years?
What we will tell you is
Lee Harris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Lee, you channel an alien intelligence referred to as the Z's. I don't believe I'm probably saying that correctly. Can you explain a bit of what it is that you do?
Yes, some people have called it an alien intelligence. I haven't, and neither have they. But they are definitely galactically connected. So how they describe themselves is they are 88 beings who can also go beyond their collective to retrieve and bring in information, much like we can. You know, we can go beyond our identity and pick up things from other people or intuitively or psychically. And some of them have been incarnate on Earth before, some of them haven't. And they speak about themselves as a consciousness library. And they say that, you know, they're a consciousness library and that they are bringing information through. And they've been my guides since I was little. Apparently I heard them until I was 6. I don't remember this. They left when I was 6 because they said it would have been very inconvenient for my life. From 6 onwards, I went through a very challenging period until my late teens when I came out of it all. And when I was 23, I heard them again very clearly on the subway, on the tube train, on the way to work in London at the time. And so, yeah, I've been hearing them now for 27 years and in conversation and communion with them for 27 years. And I have been publicly channeling for 22.
Who are the Z's? Where are they located? And why did they choose you as a carrier or conduit for their messages?
Good question. Well, the one thing they've said about the way I'm designed is they have said they use my ability with language and my ability for empathy as part of the way that they bring the information through. So it's interesting, whenever I'm channeling, I can feel my body moving in response to what's coming through me and how it might be landing for people. So I think there is a kind of something about the way I'm designed that has developed this relationship with them. I also work as an intuitive a lot. So a lot of my work is not necessarily as a channeler where I'm channeling the Z's, but I'm working intuitively. So I have that realm open, but I'm sensing, feeling, perceiving things about people in front of me. I'm intuitive to people's information. So the contract is personal. They've told me if ever I choose to stop publicly channeling, they'll never leave me. But there was apparently a contract for us to do this. I wouldn't have known that at 23. I certainly wouldn't have thought that I would still be doing this today on the scale I'm doing it today. I also didn't think the world 27 years ago, I couldn't have imagined that we would be at a time in history where a lot of this stuff that they talk about, the fact that we're not just of Earth, the fact that there is far more to us than we've ever been told, the fact that our systems have a certain level of corruption and control in them that has limited human potential, and that we're in this period of history where that's all breaking open. You know, they've been talking to me about that for 20 years, but it's quite wild to be living in the time where you're seeing it all play out. And so, yeah, that's kind of our relationship and our contract.
You are going to channel the Z's in some amount of time. I appreciate your flexibility in being open to doing that.
Of course.
And I don't see it as like a parlor trick or anything. Like I really appreciate just like your generosity and being open to do that for me and us. So thank you. Before what is the experience like for you, and how do you begin to open yourself to be able to tap into that?
It's not hard for me to tap into them. So, for example, I could be talking to you right now, and you could be saying something to me. And let's say you're a friend and you're telling me something, and I'm like, he's not telling me the truth, and I don't know why. Because he's telling me one thing, but his energy feels very different to me. I could literally go, what's going on with Aaron? And I would hear, they would tell me. So I can do that all the time. I've never, ever had a time where I don't go to them and they're there. But the act of channeling in the way that I do it when I let them speak through me usually just takes me half a minute to a minute to just kind of, get centered. And the first sentence or two, it's like a feeling that they're coming into they don't come into my body all the way. They don't come much lower than my throat chakra. They don't really hit my heart that much until the channel gets deeper. But they definitely, it changes my energy. My electrical energy field amplifies. I can get hotter. And it really depends what the channel is about. So, if you're talking about really intense, dark stuff in the world, and the dark stuff might also be hitting people, that's intense for my body, because you are dealing with something that has a very impactful response to people. So, of course, a lot of the podcasts I've been doing in the last 6 months, of course, understandably, the questions go to a lot of the heavy stuff. So, yeah, I definitely am hotter and a little more under the armpit sweat if I channel for, 30, 40 minutes on those topics, just because of the nature of that density. In a way, some of the energy moves through my body. So if we're talking about the really dense stuff, there's a certain level of work that I have to do to kind of clear my energy field afterwards to get rid of it, because that's not an area that obviously I'm dealing with it all the time because people ask me questions about the world. But for me personally, I've learned that I have to keep myself, I can pay attention to that stuff minimally. It's not too good for me to kind of look at that stuff for too long.
Can all beings channel, and are all beings channeling whether they realize it or not? Is it just a matter of kind of quieting the noise of the mind to allow like the inner whispers to come through?
Yeah. So, the way it happened to me was unusual. I was in my head, I was having all my negative thoughts, age 23, and boom, in they came and they started talking to me. But the way I teach people to do it for themselves, and I've done this in my workshops for 20 years, I will hand out paper, or, the tour we're about to do, everyone will get like a large postcard when they come in. And at a certain point during the show, I will get the whole audience to channel, and you might have 600 to 1,000 people in a room. And the way I present it is, you can channel your soul or your higher self. You may not be able to access a guide or an angel or, an alien if that's what your proclivity is, if that's what you want, but start by channeling your higher self or your soul. And if you quiet your mind, and I always give the sentence, soul, what do you want to tell me today? Or higher self, what do you want to tell me today? Or maybe you have a different word that you prefer, God or angels or whatever. And allow yourself to just see if any words come. And as they come in, just start writing them. Someone told me that Julia Cameron has something called morning pages. She did The Artist's Way. And it sounded very similar to me. I thought, well, that's different. It's differently framed, but this idea that you're bringing guidance and support through. So there are some people who can't get words. A small percentage of people don't get words. They might get feelings, sensations, imagery, but most people get words. And usually they're surprised because the words are quite nice. And usually that's where people's disbelief is. They're like, well, it's just being very nice to me about me. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's how it starts. They calibrate you to a frequency of love. And if you perhaps have a lot of self-attack or self-judgment, at first, it's good to recognize, well, I don't normally speak to myself that way. So something is happening. Even if I'm making this up, which is usually people's question, am I just making this up? Something is happening if the words that land on that page aren't the way that you normally speak to yourself. And that starts to change you. And the more you do it, the more the information gets useful.
Yeah, Ram Dass has a bit where he's referring to talking to someone that channels like a an entity or something of the sort. And his suggestion within that is like, he doesn't care where wisdom comes from. Like for me, like I was thinking about, like wisdom could come from a shoe. If it's wise, like it's great. It doesn't matter what you call it or where it comes from. It could be a little kid. It could be whatever. And something else that I think that is interesting, and then I'll shut up and we can get to the channeling part, because I think that's probably what people are more interested in. If something feels true to you when you hear something, it's something you already know. And so sometimes we can be impressed and bemused by people that are so wise and intelligent and they're sharing this deep wisdom. If you understood it, it's because you already know it and it resonates with you. It's information that's actually just being enlivened within you that you've already had. So I think and sometimes we can pedestalize gurus or leaders or spiritual people. They're just illuminating aspects within yourself or wisdom within yourself it's always been within you. Is there anything to that?
Yeah, to me, I like the example, but to me, there's a difference between soul knowing and human ego mind knowing. So I think the power of channeling lies in turning people back onto their own intuition and their own soul. When I started doing this, I was invited to some channeling groups to be a speaker. And I had come from the world of self-growth. I was going to self-growth workshops or a shamanic workshop or a yoga workshop. I was exploring more grounded things. And channeling was not what I was looking for. That wasn't a goal for me. It just happened to me. And when I went into the channeling world, there was an undeniable power in those rooms because of the transmission of energy that would come through. But I also noticed not everyone knew how to ground it afterwards. They didn't know how to use what had happened to them. So I think you did get pedestaling sometimes of channelers, just like you do of any spiritual teacher. And what I've always said about that is, I think the reason we pedestal people that we think know more than we do is because we haven't yet accessed our own knowing. And most of us, certainly I didn't have any training in spirituality as a kid. So it's quite normal. You go to a workshop and you kind of guruize the person at the front, rather than just being grateful to them and going, oh, they were a great teacher and they helped me access something in themselves. So I'm really happy to see that guru culture dying off. People realizing, no, we're not here to give our power away to someone else. We're hopefully here to use other people to access our own power. So I'm very clear, people will use me for as long as I'm useful. They might have been with me for 20 years and watched every energy update I've done every month. And someone else might go, oh, I watched one energy update and it either wasn't for me or, oh, that was useful and now I'm moving on. And that's how it should be. It should be a very healthy, autonomous relationship. But I think because we have a lot of underdeveloped or immature power structures in our own psyche, we're kind of used to giving power to the other. So yeah, true empowerment is us figuring out that we're here to learn who we are. And what I see with channeling is, yes, the information is sometimes helpful or it might give you a light bulb moment, but the energy pops you back into your own intuition and your own soul. So I think it's a soul knowing that we recognize. We might hear something in a channeling and it resonates, and all the channeling has done is it's clicked the truth that your soul knew into your conscious mind, and it makes you aware. And my guides have always said, awareness is the precursor to change. So sometimes we make a change in our habit or our pattern, and then it develops our awareness. But other times you have the awareness, I shouldn't drink this much alcohol. It's not good for me. Might take you weeks or months to get to the point where you break that habit or that pattern. But the awareness is the first light bulb moment going off that takes your unconscious habit or pattern into the conscious. So for me, I think that's the gift of channeling. It can make people, the information can make people aware of the soul levels and the soul realms and remind us, oh yeah, there is a part of me that knows this and it's coming back online. But I also think the energy taps people into their own intuition. So I've kind of come to understand that the role of a channeler, or at least for me, this is what feels true, is my job is to do the channeling to help seed more intuition on earth. The people who resonate with me, or if they resonate with someone else, they're going to that channeled source to get in touch with their own channeled source. It's kind of an osmosis process.
Yeah. Can we say hello to the Z's?
Absolutely.
Bring them in?
Yes. Let me just have a little water.
Okay.
Good. A pleasure to be here with you. We are aware that you have many areas you would like to look at with us today, but first we will start with you and the journey that you are on right now. You are in a major shift in your own life, which represents what you and the people who gather around you, Aaron, are here for. They are here for transformation, and they like accelerated transformation. Your people, like you, do not like the slow lane. They like fast. They like what we would call the grand adventure, which is part of your spirit. And yet, at this moment in time in your own life, you are learning the power in the stillness of the heart. You are currently moving your own opening from your heart to your throat. You are learning to allow your feelings through your communication. And for you, that learning is the next phase of your evolution. You already mastered the way of the body and the fluency of energy through the body. So your physical energy system for you has always been of not just prime importance, but prime alignment. And now you are opening up the other systems in you. And as you do that, you are taking many with you. They follow you and listen to you because they resonate with your way of seeing and being in the world and the areas that you are interested in. And you are someone who has learned to take the power of his mind into his body. And this is a skill that not many are in possession of. So that for you is now a little, we won't say boring exactly, but there is a somewhat been there, done that feeling for you around the mind into the body. So as your own consciousness journey has developed, and as you experienced an electrical split in yourself many years back, where your body would no longer flow in the way that it was doing, it woke you up to the vast consciousness that you were capable of generating, because you were very good at generating physical energy. You were very good at directing physical energy. Well, when you have that prowess and you turn your attention to consciousness, you are able to accelerate into those realms. So for you, your journey is all about getting into the heart. That is your goal for this life. It is not any of the rest, although all of the rest will not only support you, you will also be an example and a teacher for others. The teaching role for you has been a joyous one in this lifetime, for in the past you have been a leader, which is slightly different. There are some teachers who are also leaders, but leaders have the burden of responsibility, and for you that was something you were willing to put down after other lifetimes. So yes, you have a leader energy inside you, but you are more interested in autonomously teaching others the skills they need for self-leadership in this life. So in this lifetime, you will, and indeed are, arriving in your heart in a deeper way. And the reason that is important for those who follow and pay attention to you is you are the masculine coming into his heart at a deeper level. You are the expressed masculine on earth in many ways, coming into his heart at a deeper level. This is important for the evolution of the planet. It is important that the feminine is allowed to be in power, and it is important that the masculine is allowed to be in possession of sensitivity. And when we say feminine and masculine, that will show up in different gender bodies. It won't necessarily always be aligned that a masculine energy that is strong will be in a male-born body. But in your case, the masculine was your way. So as you continue to surrender to your, we will call it feminine energy, but you could say heart sensitivity, and the sensitivities around empathy, around compassion, around care and outward feeling toward others, not inward feeling around the own journey, but outward feeling toward others and the ability to connect and mesh with others, you will be surprised how, even just 3 years from now, your work, your life, and your path will have radically changed. But then, as we said, you are here for a grand adventure. You are not here to stay the same. You are here to keep evolving. And so, those who are most attracted to you and will stay with you for the longest will also be attracted to that process. So, with all of that said, we will attend to anything you wish to speak to us about.
That resonated. Thank you. What is the greatest obstacle blocking humanity from living from their heart?
Example. You, as humans, are trained by example. This is how it has been for a long time. The truth is, there are an enormous number of you on the planet now who are not looking for outer examples. You are finding the inner example because you are connecting to yourselves, you are connecting within, you are going into the body, into the thoughts, the feelings, and also the energy itself that doesn't possess thought or feeling. Those of you who are body sensitives are very aligned with working with your nervous system and your electrical energy field, using it, harnessing it, directing it. So currently for humanity, the problem is the examples have been what we will call heart devoid. If you look at the current dis-ease, we will say, dis-ease with your leadership around the world, more and more humans are waking up to see how devoid of heart your leadership is and has been for quite some time. Instead, there is a strategic and mental and power system at work within much of your leadership. And again, this does not relate to individual people in leadership. It relates to the system itself and how the system is controlled by those who are not seen by the public, who are behind the scenes of governmental systems. They are not seen, but they are, as it were, pulling the strings. Now, this is becoming more known, more commonplace. More people are seeing it. But the examples that you give to each other are currently coming from sideways, meaning the best examples many of you are finding right now are in your local communities. It doesn't mean that there aren't wonderful speakers, teachers, examples, or creators out there who you admire. But the truth is, you meet many good people around you if you are capable of finding your alignments, if you aren't playing out wounds, wounded behavior, wounded childhoods, wounded adult relationships that you are now recreating by casting wounded relationships in your life so that you learn and heal from it. You do not see much of this in your leadership, and that is the dis-ease on the planet right now. Those who are in control of the systems and therefore in control of the way that you as humans are organized are not operating from a place of heart or integrity or even understanding the role of the human or the whole potential of the human. They understand it, but they don't want to allow it. So the example is so important. This is why we would say to those of you who are living at this time and you are slightly in horror about what you see going on, feel the feelings you need to feel, have the grief, the shock, the anger, the rage, the sadness. That's all okay. You are human. You need to let this move through your system if you have this. But remember, you are not here as a single individual to try and overthrow a system by yourself. You are here as a single individual to be an example of what you believe needs to be seen and felt. And as more and more of you step into being those examples in your local communities, in your lives, in your ways of being, perhaps in the work you do, or if you are a public person, the example you set, then more people start to see, there is an alternative option. And I resonate with that one. But if you live in fear and let the system create everything, and your voice, your energy, your power gets diminished or pushed down, then people who are, shall we say, a little less awake to themselves as a soul, to what's possible, they have no example to see that can wake them up. This is why this is such an important time, and it's why it's so good so many of you are finding your voices.
What's the greatest lie modern humans believe that causes the most suffering for them?
That Earth is an isolated planet and not connected galactically, and that you are, shall we say, as limited as you have been encouraged to be. You have been put into limited education systems, limited financial systems. The greatest lie you believe in is the system you have been poured into. We will put it a different way. You have not been well parented. You just don't know that yet on a mass level because you haven't seen a greater example. And we don't want to blame the parents here. You could argue, well, isn't every being sovereign? And surely they could just illuminate themselves and awaken from inside themselves. Yes, there is that potential. But while the system has so embedded this way of being on Earth, it is very hard for most humans who are simply trying to survive to see this potential for themselves. And the system has encouraged this limited thinking because it serves those who benefit from the system, which is a very small number who sit atop all of you.
What is the function of forgetting our essence as a spirit, as humanity, and going through this obstacle course of remembering?
Because you are here to shift this planet from what you may sometimes refer to as 3D consciousness into 5D consciousness and beyond. The Earth has for the longest time been a consciousness playground, a consciousness experiment. Now, we have to be careful. If we use the word playground, some of you get upset because you say, well, very awful things happen on Earth. Well, awful things happen in your playgrounds too when you are children. You come across the cruelty, the difficulty, the pain in their playgrounds that you inhabit as children, that all children are imbibing and inheriting from the minute they get onto this planet. They are all displaying the same behavior they see modeled and that they pick up on and feel. So for all of you, we would say the current state of affairs is that you are moving Earth to a 5D consciousness realm. It is not there yet, but it is expected to be there within the coming, we will say, 3 to 4 decades. That is the plan and the goal and the timeline availability. What that will mean is that more people are more aware of this realm as one realm of existence, not as the only realm of existence. So the time of forgetting who you are as a soul is beginning to end. But what we can tell you, for those of you who did forget, the thing that we have said many times over the years, and it can be challenging for some to believe this, is there is nothing quite like the Earth experience in terms of the ride you get to go on. Now, we know there is suffering on the planet. We are not saying that you enjoy that part of the ride, although sometimes it is suffering that leads you to your greatest awakening. But you elected to come here, especially those of you who are way showers, to try and illuminate and bring light to this planet. Many of you chose to come to this planet, not because you wanted to, but because you came here to work, to bring more light to it. You knew before you got here that there was an element of Earth that had been trapped for a long time, and you were coming in to help bring this consciousness wave that's now moving across the Earth that would awaken more so that this planet can become the we will call it vibrational resonance it was always designed to be. But it is a game of what you might call snakes and ladders. There are parts you can fall down in. There are parts you get uplifted in. So you knew what you were signing up for before you came here. The problem is when you are here and you are living through it, it can feel like things are going wrong. Things are not what you want. And of course, suffering is not fun for any human being. Suffering is not a state or a space any of you want to experience. But that is also a part of this planet. And that is what many of you came here to try and shift and uplift. For the suffering is not usually caused human to human. That is top-down design. And it is perpetuated and recycled time and time again. So many of you came to this planet specifically to work with shifting the suffering on this planet. Your goal should not be to be the single person who does that by the end of your lifetime. Your goal should be to be one of the contributing people by the end of your lifetime.
Who or what are the powers that run the world?
This is something that we will not name for various reasons. It is not our role to do that. It is not Lee's role to do that. There is plenty of information out there that you can look into. But we will say that they are multiple races, and they are not all from here. They are in alignment with a group from here, but there are multiple races who are vying for control of Earth. The problem with this discussion is, until more is revealed, which it will be in the coming years, and particularly across the next decade, about the nature of your, shall we say, power systems, it is quite hard for people to see or take in this information without going into fear, which is why we are careful about how much gets delivered through us. This is not our role. Our role, and Lee's role, is not to create more fear on the earth. It is to create more empowerment, liberation, and opening. Therefore, speaking too much in detail about that group will bring the energy of that group into this conversation, which would be a little bit like bringing a very dark cloud into a sunny day. So we are not saying that dark clouds don't exist, but we are saying all of this because there are other sources and research you can do where you will get more clues and more information, but it is not our role to either draw people's attention to that, nor to spend too much time in the details of that, because it would not actually serve most of the people listening to this. What is enough to know is that there is a corruption that you are all seeing. You are all sensing it. You are all more aware of it, particularly since 2020. It became more blindingly obvious to more of you that things that were said and done were not true. And so that is the piece that you have to keep leaning into. Rather than trying to understand who the villain is, it is understanding that there are several forces trying to use this planet as a resource. And the consciousness battle that has been going on for a very long time on Earth is now at a point where it is more unstable than ever before. That is also why you are seeing a push from the darker forces to try and get more control, because they are going to have less control in the years to come. So there is a current attempt to create more of it quickly, because consciousness has risen on the planet. So it makes it very hard for old consciousness to have the same control and stranglehold it used to.
I was having a conversation with a person from Israel yesterday at dinner. I was just sitting at Whole Foods and a person was there, and he was describing to me some of the energy and relationship that he has towards Palestine and that whole dynamic. And a question came up of like, what is the solution within that? Is violence ever the solution towards peace? And what is the solution in old conflicts like that seem like almost impossible for someone like me to understand?
Violence is a reaction against peace. Violence is designed to destroy peace. Now, the story many have been told about war is, we will go to war so that we keep our country safe. We understand the impulse to do that. We understand the storytelling around that. We understand that people who want to be safe and have their families out of harm's way might agree to this, but the cost is a different family dies on the other side of the world, perhaps, or in another country. So you do not achieve peace through war and violence, but this is the other piece that we will tell you. The wars are by design. They are not human wanted. Humanity does not want war, but it has lived in a cycle of war for so long that it knows no different. And if you pay attention, it is never the people who are sending the country to war. It is always the leadership. And the reasons for war are never what the public are told. So this example you give of Israel and Palestine, it is right now a very, we will say, convenient agenda to get people inflamed and take sides. and say who is right and who is wrong, that will never lead to peace. However, we are not naive. You are not going to be able to enact peace on Earth within the coming few decades. It's too soon. Earth is not ready for it. However, you are about to go through quite the reckoning around war, violence, peace, and what people will say yes to. The next act of war that is declared or that arrives on Earth, people will be far less tolerant and agreeable to it. So one of two things will happen. There will be a reduction in the population because the leaders will decide to go to war anyway. They will yet again ignore the people because the people aren't really considered in the way that they have been told they are. Or the people will manage to disrupt this war because of their consciousness and because of their, we will call it, no. We will go back to something that is very hard for all of you to understand. You as people are far more powerful than you realize. You are far more powerful than you realize, but the way your system has been organized, particularly right now, where you are being told you are not allowed to peacefully protest, and if you do, you will be met with violence, you will be met with imprisonment. The writing is very clearly on the wall. More and more are just beginning to see it and realize what it is. But what we can tell you about the consciousness shift that you are in is as more people wake up to that aspect of the earth, and also, and this is equally important, wake up to their true nature, meaning you are not just a human being who has been trained into being human. You are far more than that. You are a galactic being, in fact. Your consciousness is vast. Now, does everybody agree to this? Of course not. This planet is full of differing beliefs. There are those who believe in a certain God, and there are those who believe in a different kind of God, and they would say, well, my God does not get on with your God and wants to annihilate them. So you see, belief is just belief. And yet so often belief is used as superiority. So many people want to believe their belief is right and everyone else's belief is wrong. Well, where consciousness is going, you are going to step away from some of those fixed beliefs. And there are more of you on the planet now, particularly those of you who would even still be listening to something like this, who feel aligned with the idea that this planet is far more complex than the story you are told, and that you are here to be a light for consciousness. And the more you create examples of that on the planet, the more other human beings will feel safe enough to see an alternative way. That is why some of you are pacifists. You do not want to be involved in anything to do with war, but you are busy creating better ways for people to live over on the left. And you are as needed as the frontline activists who are saying no to war. It is going to be the marriage of those two aspects, those who are creating new ways on Earth and those who are challenging, highlighting, or speaking up to the old ways on Earth that are abusive. They are not coming from a place of oneness or the good of the whole. They are coming from a place of maintaining a power they have held in a more hidden way for a very long time.
What religion brings us back to our true nature the most? Or what ideology brings us closest to our true nature?
The understanding that you don't know everything you think you know. The understanding that this universe is a mystery to you and that there is no fixed, organized figure or being that you can capably rely on outside yourself, but there is a being and a system inside you that is going to allow you to have a very defined and aligned experience here on Earth. However, we must caveat that with this. There are many on the planet who are here for religion. That is their way. Their belief in their religion is exactly the organization they are putting around themselves to experience their life. There are others among you who came here with a different role. You came here not to be part of an existing system, but to build something new. And again, we will say, most people listening to this right now are of that ilk. You came here with a little more of your galactic nature intact. So old Earth ideas don't stick to you the way that they will some. Now, we will speak for a second about the religious wave that some of you have noticed. There are many people who in recent years have turned to religion for a deeper sense of faith or God. And there are several reasons for this. God is a beautiful, benevolent force and speaks very loudly to all of you, and so do the angels. But they don't need to be organized into a religion that has rules. Humans did that in order to create control on Earth. So the books are given by humans. The energy and the essence is given by spirit. And there are many who in recent years have felt lost, disillusioned, or scared. Faith is always a way through. So perhaps for them, finding traditional religion is their way of feeling better. And there is nothing wrong with that, provided they are not using their religion to justify hatred of others, which religion often does. There are certain religions that say that other religions need to be wiped out. There are certain religions that try to decide who can love who, and also that women are second or third class citizens. None of that's correct, but they believe it is. But from our perspective, when you tune into the heart of the universe and the God force in the universe, all of those things that we just described are low levels. It doesn't mean for someone else it might not be a high level or an evolutionary step. For them, that might be an evolutionary step. But there are many of you on the planet, you and Lee included, and also many who are listening to this, whose job it was to come here not to get into something that was already established on the planet, but instead to seed and bring something new and different, something that pertains to self-empowerment. And self-empowerment is not about the human ego. It simply means you recognize that you are connected to the divine in and through your own self. So with everything we just said, we would wish to say we do not wish to diminish anyone who has found religion as their way of connecting to God. That is a beautiful thing. But we would ask any of those people to make sure that they are in a religion that is not condemning of certain people, condemning of certain groups, condemning of certain races, for that is human. That is not from God. That is not from the divine. That is not what Christ consciousness and Jesus stood for. They never stood for any of that, but you've been told they did. And that's a convenient tell.
Who is Jesus?
Well, he is very different now than who he was in his first origin point. He came to Earth as a star. So, like many of you, he was a star being who took on human form in order to bring light and enlightenment to the planet. He did not have a good early life. It was hard for him. He was deeply sensitive. And so he was often in pain. His life ending in such pain in the way it did was part of the process for him. But he also was not exactly who he was purported to be after his death and his what you will call resurrection. He was able to reappear so that his essence, his emanation could be felt and seen. And he actually stands for a reminder that humans will bring suffering to light. They will try and make any being of light go through suffering. They will try and kill the light off. But he could not be stopped. Now, his enlightenment actually took place after his death, not before. You have to remember the storytelling about him is exactly that. There is a level of storytelling. And again, it was convenient to serve a purpose. So he was we will call it, simpler man as a human than many people believe, but became quite enlightened as he was going through his life. But his full enlightenment happened after his death. And at that point, he was able to come back and permeate. Now, Jesus is, we will call it, quite vast in terms of the Christ consciousness. And the Christ consciousness in its essence is heart, energy, and love. But the name Jesus has all kinds of distortions tied to it these days. There are those who are suspicious of religion, so they are suspicious of Jesus. There are those who are devoted to religion, so they put Jesus on, we will call it, dangerous pedestal, far above them. There are all kinds of ways that his name can be misused, in the same way that public figures of today are treated the same way. So you will feel Christ consciousness and Jesus in your heart as an angelic force. It will land in your body as an angelic force, for he has now multiplied into tens of thousands of angels. And he is quite a force of healing and good on the planet, but he has gone beyond the form that he originated in and has become a vast cleansing energy field and waits for those who are using his name in distortion or misperception to go beyond those distortions and misperceptions so they can reach him again.
What about Krishna, Buddha, Allah, all the other different gods and goddesses, Greek mythological gods and goddesses? Are there such a thing as, who would be the most, is there a prominent false prophet people are following that is leading us to a potential pitfall that would be good to be aware of?
We would not say there is a false prophet exactly, but we would say there is false attribution. Again, the problems come from humanity, yet of course, one of the things that religion has done is tried to convince you that there are demons out there that you need to be careful of in the ethers. They do not point the finger at some of the demons who wrote the books and the demonic nature of the way they tried to, again, control or enslave humanity. So the false prophets are most false when they are being falsely spoken about to engineer destruction on earth by humans who want you to see them that way. So we will go back to what we said. If there is any prophet or religion that is being used to destroy people on earth or subjugate certain groups, it is not coming from love and a higher consciousness. It is coming from repeated, ingrained history.
I've heard you say that the soul does not fully enter the body until later in pregnancy. I don't remember when exactly. When does the soul enter the body? Where does the soul originate? And what are your thoughts on abortion?
Before the child is conceived, the being that is going to be the child for that parent or parents is around them energetically. So even before conception, there is the lining up of a being, sometimes years and years in advance. It depends with each individual. There are certain individuals whose timelines change and they suddenly decide they are open to being a parent. And then the soul might start to visit them 6 to 9 months before the child is first conceived. So at the beginning of its 8.5 to 9 month journey of gestation in the body. During the pregnancy, the soul does not visit the growing fetus very often. For a couple of different reasons. It would be overwhelming for the mother's body, and it's not necessary for the soul to entrap itself in such a small being, such a small growing being. It is only in the, we will say, final months, but especially the final weeks, where the soul truly starts to reside at a much lower level than above and around the mother, and instead starts to move into the body. And it is only at the moment of birth that the soul fully lands in the body. For, again, it would be overwhelming for the mother and also for the soul to try to bring themselves down onto earth when they are not able to fully function in an autonomous way. We are aware that babies are not autonomous in the way that adults are, but we mean in an autonomous way where you have moved from gestation to what we would call expression. Expression is birth and beyond. Gestation is pre-birth. The choice around abortion is a complicated one on your planet, for there are many who think it is flat out wrong. And we would say to them, then you need to do more work on rape, sexual abuse, incest, and you need to have consideration of what a mother has gone through to have that kind of experience be the way she brings a child into the world, or perhaps a girl who was very young in her life and through lack of education or lack of awareness had a sexual experience that gave her a pregnancy far before she was ready to mother. What we will say about this is there are very few women on earth, and the accompanying men who have perhaps gone through the abortion process that do not feel that deeply, even if they feel it later in their life. They may still be very clear that it was the right choice for them. Part of what happens here is people get very righteous and they say it is wrong. They are not willing to recognize that times and evolution have changed. Your technology has changed. Your medical abilities have changed. And it is true that it is not good for a parent to be a parent against their will. It is not good for the child. It is not good for the individual. It will not bring a balanced being into the world. So, what we would say is, if there is a wish to overrule abortion and make sure abortion is not allowed, then there needs to be far more education and reckoning and consequences for the men who rape, for the men who abuse. It is in some of the harshest countries where they treat their women appallingly that these rules are hoisted on the women with no care for their life or their feeling. Instead, as you might say, it is very much a man's world. And you will see in the countries where the women are most subjugated, the violence against women is the highest because they are disregarded as beings. They are seen as objects and they are seen as what you would call property of men. That is never a good thing, and never does that lead to men being balanced, for they have disconnected themselves from their potential mirrors, the feminine. And even if it is a man who is more attracted to his own gender, he still needs to be in relay to the feminine and the freedom and the balance of women on earth. So for us, the abortion discussion is very simple. If you want to ban abortion, you need to increase education and criminalization around the women who are impregnated against their will, who are given no support. And you also need to recognize those people who are so angrily campaigning against abortion. There are feelings involved here. No woman chooses to do that willingly. So until the imbalance around sexual violence on earth, sexual abuse on earth, and sex itself is, we will call it, more leveled out on earth, you will have women who are not ready to have a child, or even need to not have the child because it was a child of violence. So what we are aware of is there are plenty of opportunities for souls to arrive on earth. You do not need more bodies on earth. You actually need more consciousness on earth, not more bodies.
How old is humanity? What's the origination of humanity?
It depends who you ask and how far back you want to go. But we would say the origination of the humanity that you are aware of right now is approximately 11 or 12,000 years.
So agrarian age, the story for me, my awareness is that was around the time of agrarian age. And before that, we were hunter-gatherer type people. There was also the time of a large meteor that hit the earth.
You were seeded. You were seeded. And once you were seeded as a physicalized being, your consciousness changed. Prior to this time, you were more, we do not want to say primitive, for we do not mean that to sound judgmental, but your consciousness was seeded.
Is there something to the concept of panspermia, that human consciousness or humans come from a type of fungus from space, meteorites heading? How were we seeded? What does that mean?
Well, what we mean is the galactic, we will call it, meeting point with humans happened. And once that happened, humans were set on a course of change. But around the same time, you were also intercepted. So let's go back a little beyond 10,000 years. Humans were designed to evolve and become highly conscious, and the planet was set to become, we don't want to use the word a paradise paradigm, for that makes it sound a little too cozy or flowery. But when we say a paradise paradigm, we mean a living example of oneness consciousness. This was the goal of one group who came to Earth to seed humans in that way. But at the same time, because galactic war was taking place, a few other groups wanted to seed humanity in a different direction. So you were seeded with high level consciousness, but then very quickly, a few other groups arrived on the planet to try and get control. And so, because it was too late, you had been seeded with galactic consciousness, meaning all of you are hybrids in that way. None of you are just human, you are all from the stars in your DNA. But that was the time where a few groups decided to go underground and control humanity for the long term. At least that was the goal. To have control of Earth as a planet, to have control of humans, and to do it in more subtle and insidious ways. And they are very patient beings. They have long lifespans. But they are dying off at this point. There are very few of them left. They have lost power. They are losing power. There are a few who are still trying to vie for control, and there are 4 groups on Earth that are, we will say, behind the scenes pulling the strings. And one of the groups is benevolent and is the original group that seeded this planet with higher consciousness. And they are not here to fight. They are simply here to guard. The other 3 are in fighting with each other. So you see, when you look at your planet and you see how many groups, how many countries are fighting, how many different types of religion there are, you see that you are in fact a representation of galactic war. It just plays out on a human level, and you have things called countries and you have things called religion. But they are an example of the frequency wars that have been playing out on Earth and off Earth for a very long time. So you might hear this story and think it's a sad story or a disappointing story, but you have to remember, you incarnated at a very late point in the story, and you chose to. You knew what you were coming here for, and as we said, many of you are here as way showers.
Where is the spiritual plane? What is the texture of the spiritual plane? Are there different dimensions? How can the human traverse these different dimensions? Do we have the instrumentation to be able to feel and experience all planes of reality? How limited are humans exactly?
Humans are as limited as their own development. So, there are humans on Earth right now that can astral travel in profound ways. There are humans even that can teleport through their own consciousness. There aren't many of them, and you won't know them. They are hidden. They are not out in public speaking about this. For, with all due respect, you who are all out in public, you are still mainstream consciousness. So even if you are, even this conversation is a peak point in mainstream consciousness, and that is its own place. We are not meaning to diminish this conversation. We understand the importance of this conversation, and we understand the importance of all listening. But there are advanced beings who hid themselves away, some of them hundreds of years old, and they are able to do the extraordinary. And the fact that they are still living on and in the planet means that you have those, shall we say, emblems of, you might call it greatness or the extraordinary. We will call it the ability to traverse the realms and the dimensions. For that is what it is. It's the ability to leave your physical form, go beyond the flesh, the bone, the cells, and to do the extraordinary. Now, we are not saying all of humanity should look like this today, or that should be your goal. But what we will tell you is, yes, all of you have the ability, but not all of you will be here to be everything. So think of your career paths. Aaron, you have specialized in being a master of the body, and now you are moving into being a master of consciousness in tandem with the body. But that has meant there are certain things you have not been able to master. There is only so much time, and most of you come here with a few focuses that you want to achieve in your life. And as you achieve each one, you then get to go to the next level and achieve some more. But very few on the planet can do or be everything, and nor need you be. You did not come here to try and be everything all at once. You came here to be you and to experience as much as you can. So, yes, all humans have this potential, but it depends on the role of your soul, how you are positioned. So, for example, we will put it this way. You or Lee, as an example, have become very specialized in areas that you now spend an enormous amount of your time and your daily lives working in. But imagine if you weren't doing that or having to do that, what you could develop in yourselves in other areas. So there's nothing wrong about this. We're just pointing out that human and linear time is finite. You all have access to other realms and other dimensions, but you have to remember you came here for this one. So yes, some of you came here to demonstrate to others how to access other realms and dimensions from Earth, from the human body. And that's a very important job because it is tending to and helping aid in the evolution of human consciousness. But all of you can do that when you pass over. So that is why we understand the interest in other realms and other dimensions. But what we will tell you is your experience, even through this channeling, that's the label that is given for this telepathic conversation. Even through this channeling, there is a limit to how much we can bring through to your realm because of the gravity on your realm, the gravity of understanding, the gravity of the body. So we are a meeting point at the top of your consciousness, but when you go beyond the top of your consciousness as a human, everything changes. What we will tell you is, in the higher dimensions, everything is lightning fast. You would be surprised as a human. You are operating at 100th of the speed that everything operates in the higher dimensions. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. You are advanced and more advanced than you have been in a long time, many of you. But it is not a realm or a dimension that you would particularly recognize. That is why there is a beauty to the slowness of Earth. You get to truly finesse in detail each area, and many of you are here to, we don't mean to say this in a negative way, many of you are here to clean this planet up. That's why it sometimes feels like arduous work. You came here to clean up the wounds of this planet, and many of you are doing that by first embodying them, transforming them in yourselves, and then becoming an ambassador of the transformation of that to others. So there is a lot of cleanup on this planet in order to allow the higher dimensions to return. But we will tell you the Earth will be your ally. In the coming years, you are going to see more Earth events, yes, but more than that, the Earth is going to show you her mysteries and her surprises. The Earth is going to reveal things to you that have been hidden from human view, which will make it very hard for those who have been in control of this information to keep a lid on things. And at that point, they will lose their power. Those who have been keeping a too tight stranglehold on humans, they will lose their power. They know they are going to lose their power. That is why they are fighting so hard right now to control you as quickly as they can. It won't work, but they can cause various amounts of damage or suffering along the way, which is why it's important for all of you to develop yourselves, be discerning, find your voice, and be very clear about what you will and won't accept on and for Earth as you go through the coming 2 years especially.
What's the most surprising thing coming for humanity in the next 2 years?
On an energetic level, love. Many of you will be shocked how much you will feel love. You will feel love for fellow humans. You will feel love flowing through you in ways that you have not before experienced. And then we will say on a more practical level, the crumbling of the illusion of what the world was. The crumbling of the illusion of what the world was. Now, you could argue that's already happening. Many say, oh, the world is falling down. Ah, yes, but there are some major building blocks that have not yet been removed. Foundational lies that you have been told that are about to become exposed in extraordinary ways. It is really just beginning in terms of the reveal to humanity of some of the lies you have been told and sold. And we understand that can be sobering, heavy, difficult. It will not be that. In fact, it will be liberating. And those of you who came here as way showers, those of you who came here with a consciousness around your role on this planet, we're not saying you will like everything, because we are aware that many of you are already in pain when you see your brothers and sisters on the planet suffering. If you yourself are lucky to not be in the line of fire with the latest world event, it pains you to see what's playing out. We are aware of that. But what we will tell you is you will see a growing wave of public support around a movement for change that you are currently not seeing. And that is one of the things that scares you all the most. It scares you a little that you do not see fellow humanity rising up. Humanity rises up when it is backed into a corner. We understand that for many of you, it might not need to be that way. But for those who are already asleep, for those who have successfully, shall we say, bought into the narrative, for them to wake up, they need to be impacted. And that is already at play. There are so many who have been impacted negatively in the last decade, and particularly the last 5-6 years. But there are more shockwaves to come. And as more people start to understand the, shall we say, smoke and mirrors that your organization has been built upon, then they will feel fire. They will feel the fire of injustice. They will feel the fire of life moving through them. They will feel the fire of wanting something different. Many won't, because they will be too exhausted, too depleted, and they will not yet have self-realized in a way that will allow them to know what to do. But for the many of you that do know what to do and have developed the possible alternatives, you will be in leadership positions. And we don't mean there will be 10 new leaders. We mean there will be millions and millions and millions of new leaders who will be helping those who are not yet in self-leadership or in their own sovereignty to find that as you move into building a new world.
I want to be respectful to Lee needing to go in a few minutes. I want to ask one selfish question about myself before you go. Who am I? What is my highest expression to serve in this world? What are my greatest blind spots? And is there any advice that you have for me on my path?
Well, your gifted mind has been one of your strongest assets and allies in life, and your gifted mind has also sometimes pulled you out of feeling, which you are aware of. Feeling for you was a place that you did not trust in early life. Not that you don't enjoy the good feelings in your body when you are doing something that you enjoy expressing, but for you, feelings, if physicalized, are safe. Feelings, if they are energetically relayed to you through other beings, and because you were around some manipulative behavior in your early life where emotions were concerned, it made you pull back, pull away, pull in. So you mastered your strength through your mind and your body. And that is why we said you are now coming into your heart, which is quite common for people. They master an area and then they move on to the next one. It's quite normal. You open a little like lotus flowers, adding more petals each time. So a blind spot for you can be your anger. You can get frustrated and angry, and there is nothing wrong with that expression if it runs through you. But sometimes your anger can blind you, or your frustration can blind you to the wider truth. And you are no different to anyone here, Aaron. Some people get depressed, and that is their blind spot. It keeps them blind for the amount of time that they are feeling depressed. How you are here to serve humanity is to, again, be a leader. The very role that you decided you wanted to leave behind in other lives is what you will continue to grow into in this lifetime. Teacher has felt more comfortable to you thus far. The leader role, you still have some remorse over past life events where you feel you were not the one who pulled the trigger, but you were in association with some who brought annihilation. It was not your choice to bring annihilation, but you were in association with a group who did. So there is a great deal of personal responsibility you have around hurting others. It has also affected your intimate relationships, but you are now changing that paradigm. You are recognizing, yes, you are powerful, but your power need not hurt others, particularly if you find others who are strong and sovereign and self-holding enough to be capable of walking with you, which you will. You are on that path. So in this lifetime, you are moving into healthy embodied leadership. And you are having to learn to forgive yourself because forgiveness for you is not something you are easy with. Part of your success has been your drive. The challenge of having a strong drive is knowing when to take your foot off the accelerator and when it's important to slow down, stop, or cruise. So, you are doing very well. You have already completed multiple levels in your life, and you are about to go into the happiest period of your life so far. Happy because you will feel at peace and you will feel centered and settled, even with everything going on around you. You will be more content to be alive on this planet and less disturbed by it as you go through the coming years, which is saying something, for there will be some disturbing information for many in the years to come. But for you, that disturbance is what you already feel. So as it comes to light more and more, you will actually breathe more of a sigh of relief, because you will say, at last, I am not feeling and sensing this all by myself. And now I will roll up my sleeves and help be a leader in the rebuild.
Thank you.
Good. In peace and in love to you, your tribe who listen, who connect, and to all of you. Our intention with everything we have said is hopefully to empower you. If anything was triggering or alarming to you, we ask you to just sit with the emotion it raised, be it sadness, grief, anger, upset. It's okay. You are allowed to feel. It is important you feel. You have all inherited these feelings from the energy template of the earth that you were born unto. None of you pick up on these things alone. So, give yourself grace and space to process, but know that you chose to be here for this time. And as we have said, most of you listening to this, especially if you are still listening now, you are here to create something different, not to simply sit in despair about what is. You came here to seed higher consciousness on earth. And part of your way of doing that is to heal, empower, and align yourself. And then you offer that to others through your way of being, your energy field, or your actions and your service to humanity. The last thing we will say is find ways to enjoy your life every day. Enjoyment does not always look like giddy excitement. It can look like peace, calm. Find ways to sit and look at the majesty of this planet and recognize this planet has majesty, even if all kinds of things have been done unto it in the name of commerce or power or control. This planet has majesty, and it has not ejected you all yet, even though it could have had many times where it needed to do that. It is still allowing you to live here, waiting for you to get back into harmony with it. And you will. And many of you in your lifetime will be part of the ones to usher that reharmonization process back to the earth. Good. In peace and in love to all.
Thank you. Thank you all for tuning in. That is it. That is all. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Aziz. Is there anything that you want to share before going, Lee? I know you have to go or going over your time.
No, I have nothing else to say. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you so much. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in. That's it.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, you might also enjoy this episode over here, as well as this one over here. Thanks for subscribing. Appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video.